Loving the Divorce Podcast? Take it further with Amicable Space, our exclusive membership for people navigating separation and divorce. Get expert webinars, exclusive content, a supportive community, and our Amicable Extras podcast with extended interviews and expert insights. Join today at amicable.space/membership because the right support makes all the difference. Welcome to the Divorce Podcast, where we explore relationships, divorce, separation, and parenting apart. This episode is part of our new mini-series where we answer your questions, discuss current news and events, and share practical bite-sized tips. I'm your host, Kate Daly, a relationship counsellor, divorce specialist, and co-founder of Amicable, the online legal service for separating couples. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Heather Black, the founder and CEO of Supermums, who shares her expertise as a training provider along with actionable tips for getting back into the workforce post-divorce. If you know somebody, a friend, a colleague, or a family member who would really benefit from this episode, click that share button now. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
It's really lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us. To give the episode a bit of context, today we're going to be talking about returning to work after a divorce. Now, that's something that both you and I have done, so we should be able to smash this. So just tell me to start with, Heather, what is it like returning to work once you've been divorced?
I think we have lots of mums that go through our programme who are looking to get their financial independence and resilience back. Many have given up work to bring up kids. And one of the hardest things about deciding to go for divorce and progress those steps and to feel like you have a future ahead of you is about being able to be financially independent and to have a career, to feel that self-worth again, to feel like you've got a future and an opportunity and something to be excited about, right? Because divorce is very emotionally challenging. It can feel like the end of something, there's a lot of grief. You don't know what the future holds. It's scary. And we've certainly had women come on the program who, have not yet even started those, made that decision or started the steps toward divorce because they want to get back on their own feet to start with before they can even move forward with anything. But equally, once they've got back on their feet and they've got that job opportunity and they have a new friendship group through Supermums, they're meeting other women, they've got a new career, they've got a new job, they've suddenly found this new life. And, that has given them, one, the financial capacity to make decisions and to move, decide to take on that next chapter. It just feels an incredibly supportive space for them to do that. Personally, I have always managed having a flexible career around having children. And, that also gave me, from my own personal perspective, the capacity to, make those hard and very difficult decisions to start a new life on my own as well. And, it can be the reason why many people stay in a relationship because they haven't got that flexibility, that freedom. They think that I can't have a career and earn well and look after the kids. And how am I going to do this by myself? And, people can be stuck in marriages where they're really unhappy for many years. And that affects their energy, their emotional well-being, their mental health. And you might find, what's interesting is you might find getting back on your feet and having a career shifts things in a relationship and maybe makes it better. But if you have decided and taken those steps to go through an amicable divorce, which is absolutely what we want and what you guys stand for, this gives you that window and that opportunity to get back on your feet.
Yeah, I think there's some really interesting points in there, Heather. I think back to, when I was considering getting divorced, and that was the precursor to the divorce, as you've just said there, was I actually went back to work as a way of knowing that I could enable a divorce to happen, because at the point that our relationship was breaking down, I was, a stay-at-home mum. And you feel so vulnerable as a stay-at-home parent in terms of being dependent on somebody, that the idea of going through a divorce and not knowing where the money's going to come from is terrifying. So it was a really big step for me to think, actually, you know what, the only way that I can do this for the sort of better of all the greater good of all of us is to go back to work, and to go back to work quickly. And that was the step that I did before even talking or articulating the divorce to my ex or anything. So I think there's probably a whole group of people that maybe will take some kind of inspiration from the program that you've got set up, where they can come at that very early stage and get themselves back to work, even if they haven't started a divorce or, you know, are in the midst of it. So it's really interesting to hear you say that, and that group provides such a huge amount of support as well. What about other people then? Do you get a mix of people in your groups then? So are there some people who, you know, perhaps the divorce wasn't their choice, there's no sense of seeing it coming or planning, and all of a sudden, you know, we have lots of people who are thrust into a situation where divorce has taken place and they have to go out to work, but it wasn't in the plan, it wasn't what they'd agreed with their ex, but suddenly everything in their life has been thrown up in the air and they're forced back out to work, essentially. Do you get, you know, people in that scenario as well?
Yeah, and we've got career relaunches, and we have men and women in the group as well. It's not just we open our arms to anybody that wants to come on our program, but our mission has always been to support women, to get women relaunches back into work. But we've got people from all walks of life, you know, who, in that very hard situation that you've mentioned, you know, this wasn't their decision, and, you know, they've kind of found themselves completely sort of, you know, in that sort of hole of going, well, how do I move on and get out there? You know, there will be a mix of those. There's women who've had to move country because of their partner's career, and they found themselves in England, you know, having come from East European or India, you know, and across from different countries, and they've come to the UK and gone, I've got to find a job here. Again, that's incredibly isolating and lonely, and is scary to get back on the ladder. You know, we've got women who have had jobs which are not flexible, you know, where they're working evenings or nights or weekends. And again, navigating that with a divorce and getting that right balance. You might not even have a balance. It might be that your ex isn't wanting the kids to be around. And then you're thinking, gosh, well, how do I manage a career and look after the kids full time? You know, you can find yourself in so many different positions.
Heather, let's just talk a little bit about Salesforce then. So for people who don't know, just give a little bit of background. What is Salesforce and what do you offer in terms of careers and jobs for people?
So Salesforce is the number one CRM system in the world.
Just to be clear though, Supermums isn't Salesforce. So there's a link between you and Salesforce. Just explain what your relationship with Salesforce is then.
Yes, absolutely. So Supermums is a brand that I set up 8 years ago as a separate organisation, and we're an authorised Salesforce training provider. So Salesforce always delivered a 5-day course that was in person and was £3,500. That's what you typically pay to go on a 5-day course to equip you to learn Salesforce. What I found with that, though, is it didn't really equip you to relaunch your career with confidence. You know, you go on a 5-day course, then what? You know, and you're paying out quite a bit of money. So when I launched Supermums, we decided to take, as an authorized Salesforce training provider, we can deliver that training course, but we heavily discount it, and we broke it up over a period of weeks. And so people could fit it around their flexibility. But in addition to that training content that is, you know, we're given and we can deliver, we padded it around with a whole holistic support package. And the reason I did that is because I have over 20 years experience designing and developing employability programs. That's my background. And so I'd researched a lot about what helped people back into employment, what worked, you know, what that component was. And I did that for public sector. Like I was working for local authorities and national government departments, designing and evaluating employability programs, business startup programs, etc. So with Supermums, we have, as I say, we deliver training over a number of weeks, but we've packaged it with lots of practical work and exercises as well. So there's lots of practice there. And you meet with a one-to-one mentor every week for an hour. So you have somebody holding your hand on a one-to-one basis to check that you've understood the content, that you're doing the homework, that you're getting it right. If you haven't quite got it right, they'll help you to understand it and get it right. And you submit a homework record every week as well. So there's that accountability and structure with a very clear timetable. And every week, the live training is for 2.5 hours. Now, the majority of people will make that 2.5 hours live. We have a session that is evening time, which is just after 6, and one that's during the day. So again, we've got 2 time zones that people can take. And during those live sessions, if you can't make it live, it's recorded so you can watch it on replay. Some people will work full time and can't make it, so they'll watch on replay. But as part of that group, as part of that live training, you're part of a group. So a lot of people make friendships being part of this group, and then they've got new friends in this industry. They'll meet up at events together. They create incredible friendships and opportunities. And again, as say, some people are going through that same path of divorce and or relocation or from India, etc. So people will gravitate to people that they might, build that friendship with. So they've got a cohort of new friends where they can meet up and, immediately. And we've got an alumni community that's very active, that's much bigger as well. So we've had over 1,500 people through the program. So you're part of a new family. That's what we really advocate. And so you've got that cohort of people with you. You've got an accountability structure where you've got a deadline and tasks to do every week that people really like because it's very clear. You've got a one-to-one mentor that's holding your hand every week and during this emotional journey of ups and downs as you go through. We also give them real life work experience. So when you've completed the training and you've got your first certification, we give real life work experience working with a non-profit, which is the first thing to put on your CV. So, you're really getting that whole holistic support package. And off the back of having the mentor, the work experience and the training, you can also get 3 references from us because they're 3 people that can verify that you've learned the content, that you know what you're doing and can start advocating for you, particularly when you're going for job interviews and everything else. And so they're the key ingredients that I think help anybody relaunch your career. So whether you're doing it with Supermums or you found, you decided on a new job opportunity, I really sort of say get a support network around you, have a mentor, have a really great trainer. You want credible training, find where you can get work experience. We also provide career coaching and advice. So we do career advice sessions every week. We do CV writing service. We've got a recruitment team. So we'll actively support you with the job hunting, but we also encourage you to get out there and put yourself out there and to network within our alumni to sort of access what we call the hidden job market. And so everybody knows the Supermums brand. It's got a lot of credibility and reputation. So again, that opens doors for you in terms of job opportunities and prospects. So that's, you want to be looking for all those ingredients, whether it's through us or through somebody else. It gives you that, that feeling of being lifted and supported and being a support network. And I will just reflect back to my own experience going through divorce. It feels very isolating, particularly if you have no friends that are in that space or don't really understand. They're there to talk to, but it's not quite the same, And so I paid to be part of networks and groups of women on a journey. Either I was in the entrepreneurship space, so I found a group of women entrepreneurs, and funny enough, quite a few of them had been going through divorce as well or had gone through a divorce. And I also paid for a trauma healing group as well, therapy group. And being part of those groups was incredibly important to carrying me through that journey. And so I think it's a great opportunity, to find that support network for yourself when you're going through that journey is really important too.
It's really interesting listening to you talk and having those clear set of ingredients, as you said, that go into preparing yourself for going back to work. What do you think then are the mental challenges about going back then? Because like you say, you can get your CV sorted, you can get your work experience, you can make sure you've got good training and you've got a support network. What are our biggest demons inside our heads, do you think?
Yeah, so at Supermums, I talk about the ambitious women mindset. And I can train anybody, right, on Salesforce. But if their mindset is not in the right space to achieve the next step, there's still going to be a barrier. So with the ambitious women mindset, this again, we're sort of 6 ingredients that came from my own personal experience and my own healing journey. But my background is career coaching, business coaching. So I've got a coaching background, and the core of it is coaching yourself through it, but you also being part of a group of people that will coach you through. So getting really clear on your goals. The first thing about the ambitious women mindset is getting really clear on your goals. What are your goals for yourself and your future? What do you really want? Because you've got to have the carrot in front of you to kind of find that reason for pulling you through, to getting the light at the end of the tunnel. What does the light look like? And, is it a house that you want? Some of the mums in our group will share, we do a brag of the week. And one of them was, I finally managed to get my own house, which was her goal and her ambition. So you've got to get really clear on what does the light at the end of the tunnel look like now, month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. Find your goals, get the picture vision board up on your wall and kind of be working towards it. The next is to have a support network in place. Who is it you need around you to support you and lift you up in all areas of your life? If it's looking after the kids or with work or whatever, it's relationships, it's having the right relationships, the right support network. The third is energy, making sure you've got time to energize yourself. So we plug our phone and our computer into the socket every day. But what do we plug ourselves into? We have to recharge ourselves every day as well. So whether that's dancing to music, going to the gym, meditating, yoga, making sure that you're plugging yourself into that energy socket every day is really important to recharge ourselves. Because only if we've got the energy can we wake up and go, right, let's go. What are we doing next? Boundaries, you need to have boundaries in place to manage all of that. So being able to say no, blocking out time and diary, being really strict with yourself. I try and squeeze a Peloton in for half an hour when, the kids are busy. They've just got home from school. They want some downtime of their own. Okay, I'll go and have my downtime too. Not feeling, I think, Katie, you said we want to feel like we're there for our kids all the time, but actually sometimes they just want to switch off for half an hour. So what are you going to do in that half an hour that can just really recharge you? And then you all come back together and you're all rebooted and energized to spend that time together. Confidence is the fifth element. So making sure that you're spending time on things that make you feel confident, like knocking that imposter syndrome on the head. We can be very much our own. We can be defeatist in our own right. We're constantly telling ourselves, I can't do this. That negative voice in our head, is always there. And we have to tell it to go away. We have to say, yes, I can do this. But again, it's surrounding yourself with the right people, the right tools, the right networks. If you've been in a negative relationship where somebody's always telling you can't, you're not good enough, is always putting you down, you need to get yourself out of that psyche and tell yourself that you can, that you will, you are able to, and you need to surround yourself by people that are telling you that too is incredibly important.
I was going to say, and that's maybe where you mentioned that trauma-informed therapy before. Maybe that's where you do need a bit of professional help to give you that extra bolster and support, because it's easy to say, isn't it? Oh, we need to get out of that mindset, or we need to do, but it's really hard if, like you say, you've been in a relationship where that you've had that weight of negativity sitting on your shoulders the whole time. That can be the point at which we have to recognize we need to invest in ourselves, and some investment in some therapy is often the most cost-effective investment you ever make in your life, isn't it?
No, it's really important. I had one-to-one counselling and group, the group therapies, the group sort of support that I was part of, and, hand on heart, I couldn't have done it without that, I think. And it's, it's not feeling an element of weakness. It's about people lifting you up and being your advocates and patting you on the back and sort of having that time to kind of talk through things is incredibly important. And then the sixth element is impact. And that's about, what difference do I want to make in the world? And that could just be about, for me, is making my kids laugh, right? And the basic ingredients, being happy for my kids, being going out, feeling free. That was really the key reason for in making those hard decisions in the first place is I wasn't happy. I wasn't me. I wasn't able to show up and be flexible. And now we just laugh out loud. Most days we will laugh out loud and have a laugh. And that feeling of freedom is so important. But on the other side, my impact level is helping women change their lives every day. And, that is the other sort of element that really gives me my purpose in life. Is, seeing and hearing those stories of women who've got the flexibility and freedom and, career is why I show up every day and do things like this.
Yeah, exactly. And that purpose is very important, isn't it? Because it's what keeps you going, even when it's particularly tough to do that and to show up for people. What about the typical barriers? So, you've got someone who's maybe going back to work. What do they experience as the typical barriers from employers? What are they most worried about? What do we have to be able to navigate in this sort of big bad world if we're going back and relaunching careers?
Absolutely. So when we talk and support with the career advice element of it, we've had women that, have been out of work or never worked actually. They had kids young and they're thinking, well, can I do this? And we've got incredible case studies on our website and videos of people that have relaunched their career or launched their career effectively after kids. And I think it's really important to listen to some of those case studies to hear it from the horse's mouth, if you like, about people going, well, how will I get a job in this if I've never worked before? We teach people, don't just apply for a job, but go and find the hiring manager, connect with them on LinkedIn, try and send them an email or a message, build that relationship with them. There's all those things that you need to do that just add more brownie points and open the door to that job. If you apply for a job cold and just sit and wait, and then somebody in HR department or AI is going to screen you in or out, it's not, it really knocks your chance of getting a job, so low.
And your confidence, presumably, as well, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So we are there to really advocate on all the career support and steps that you need to do to get in the door. And, women who are relaunching their career after years out of work, obviously are going to, have to compete at that level. But that's why all those ingredients that I've talked about are so important. Like, you want the 3 references, you want a credible training provider, you want the best, you want the work experience. There are things that are going to give you the best chance of success, which is why I designed Supermums in the way that I did.
I'm mindful of, when we're sitting down with people going through divorces and we're looking at income and outgoings and what people need to live on going forward when they're going to be separate. There's often a lot of pressure for somebody who hasn't been in the job market to return to work quickly. And there's a lot of naivety about how quickly somebody can start to earn, the income that's going to support them. So what do you think partners can do to support husbands or wives returning to work? What are good, kind things that can be done to help that process? Because ultimately that's what's going to speed it up, isn't it? So what do people need to be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, if you're with your partner still and they want to, I think it's about making an informed decision about where you spend the money and what is going to be spent on. We welcome both people, partners, onto we offer free career consultations where both people can come along, can ask their questions. It means you're both informed, you both understand it, and you're able to make that decision together. And, that's what you want. You work as a team, as a couple, that's effectively where you want to be.
It's interesting, isn't it? Even if you're divorcing and separating, there's such an important role for your partner to play, isn't there? And getting you and helping you go back to work, whichever partner it is, and making sure that you've got the sort of, particularly if you've got kids, you've still got the shared responsibility and the joint goal of providing for them, haven't you? So doing it as a team, even if you're separated, makes perfect sense. And it's lovely to hear that, you've got that facility to welcome both partners. It's been really fascinating, listening to the work that you do and how Supermums goes about empowering people to go back to work after a break. Where can people find out more about you if they want to understand a bit more about what you do?
So we have a website, which is supermums.org. So you can find us there, but I'll also provide a link for the show notes. And we have a page on our website, which is called What is a Salesforce Career? That's a really great starting place because you can download a free career plan, book in the free career consultation, which just kind of gives you the more information and the guidance to take the next steps if you want to.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds like a great resource. Thank you for sharing. And for separation and co-parenting support, you can obviously visit amicable.co.uk, where you can explore our resources or book a free advice consultation if you've heard anything in the podcast today that makes you have questions. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe for updates by visiting thedivorcepodcast.com, or you can find us on your favourite listening platforms. Finally, we'd love to know how we can help more. So please share your questions on divorce, separation and co-parenting with us at hello@amicable.co.uk. You never know, they might be the topic of the next episode. Thank you ever so much for joining me, Heather. It's been wonderful talking to you. And thank you, everyone, for listening.